Hey, ladies and gents, and welcome back to the Controlled Interest Gamecast, where we talk about video games and everything happening in the industry. Not as always, I'm only joined by Jordan this episode. How's it going, Jordan?
Womp womp, I'm all alone.
Yeah, unfortunately, Dom couldn't join us this week. He'll be back next week. So we got the fireside groove, as Jordan calls it, going on this week.
Yes, indeed.
So let's get into what we've been playing. For me, I actually, and this wasn't anything I talked about last week, I got super back into Fallout 4. I was playing it quite a bit. I'm about 90% through the game. I haven't finished the main quest line yet, but I'm almost done. I've just been going around doing open world stuff. I was watching a bobblehead guide video to get all the bobbleheads. So I was just going through that. I got I think 6 or 7, maybe 5 on my own, just playing normally. And then I was like, yeah, I'll go get them all because there's an easy achievement type. Oh, there's 2 actually. One for getting 10 and then one for getting 20. So I've just been playing that. It's fun. I like Fallout. I like it for the reason of it is more Fallout 3. Though I only played about the first 30 to 40 minutes of Fallout 3 because I didn't get it at release. I got it very late down the line, at a used game kind of thing. And then stuff came out and I never got back to playing it. But then I played New Vegas front to back. Loved New Vegas. And then Fallout 4 I obviously loved. So I've just been playing that, really. Haven't really watched anything. Reading some more Invincible. Jordan turned me on to that comic a while back, and I absolutely love it. It's awesome.
Where are you at? What issue are you on?
I'm on 23.
Okay.
So I've only read 2 since last week, but I always try to make it, whenever I go to bed, I at least read 1 before. I didn't really do that this week, but it's kind of my goal most of the time. It's a good comic, though. It's very refreshing, even though those comics are 12 years old by now, the ones I'm on.
Yeah, there's several. You're probably going to catch up to me at some point because I'm on 54 or something.
Yeah.
Not too much further ahead. Because the reason I picked up Invincible was because I was reading Walking Dead, and then I wanted to kind of stretch Walking Dead out longer to get it to kind of back up to season 7 premiere. And so I've been going back and forth. But, something I noticed, the ones that I'm reading are still, I think, before 2010, and they're still saying things like, "Oh, that's so gay," or "You look like a retard," and I'm like, "Damn, this is major cultural change right here, I guess."
Yeah, I totally forgive that. Well, in the first issue, when he carries his best friend, because his friend learns he can fly, he's like, this is so gay, that totally wouldn't fly nowadays, and I kind of forgive it for the time period, and I just brushed it off. But that comic is so great. If you have a chance to read it, Jordan told me this, and it's completely true. If you're not sold by I think it's issue 7 or 10, some big stuff happens. If you're not sold by then, you won't like it. I read up to that point, and I absolutely love it. So, just Fallout 4, Invincible, that's pretty much it. Obviously, some Overwatch here and there, but I just don't like to repeat myself so much with all that stuff, so... what about you? What have you been playing?
I have been playing Persona 3. I hopped on that and watched P.S. I Love You the other day.
Nice.
And I was enjoying it. At this point, I know I've kind of mentioned this before, but it is a PS2 game that's a 100-hour RPG for its main quest line, so you can just, see the cracks in the pavement essentially by 70 hours in, where it's okay, yeah, you're just essentially doing the same type of things, maybe not the exact same way every time, but you're definitely kind of repeating a lot of stuff. Otherwise it just wouldn't be that long of a game, because it's not Witcher or something like that with a big open world with all these side quests that you could do. So it's definitely repetitive, and I think that, I don't know what the length of Persona 5 is going to be, but I think if Atlus was smart, they would probably change that a bit.
Yeah.
Because this was, Persona 3 and 4 were back in the days of the PS2, before we really had so many open world games. And people really wanted that long media experience out of a JRPG. And even if it was just reading text, and obviously Persona 3 is further than that along the line, but I think they just definitely some artificial padding, because most games I would say have that in this day and age, but either way it's still an awesome game, and I do still love it. So
I have a question for you with it. So I've never really played the Persona games. I've seen gameplay and I've seen extensive stuff. So to me, it seems like those games are very character driven. Like you
Sure.
learn about these characters and you fall in love with them. And I think the reason those games are so long is because they expect you to stay in love with those characters, and the other is filler. But they expect your love for these characters and wanting to know more and experience more to kind of carry you through that. And you think that maybe it should be shorter in that sense then, because you want to have the time with these characters mean something, as opposed to it going on and on and on and on, you know, where you kind of like get tired of these characters or get tired of these experiences.
I will say that's the one part of it that I'm not tired of, because of the fact that you are these high schoolers that don't know each other. Most of them don't know each other at the beginning of the year, and then you're actually like going through their school year, experiencing the different seasons and getting all that. So you get a lot of their life. It's not just like they took a month and made it extend over 100 hours.
Yeah,
you know. So also a big part of the Persona games, at least since Persona 3, because that's a good note to make, that the first two Persona games were way different, and then 3, 4, and now 5 are going to be kind of more their own trilogy, kind of like how Fallout is.
Yeah.
How, like, before Fallout 3, Fallout 1 and 2 were just very different games. So, but a big part of, big part since Persona 3 is social links. And I'm sure you've heard about that. It's basically just where you build up social links between...
Yeah, like relationships and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, like there's dogs, there's, you know, adults, there's fellow students, and so that really does help to keep you from getting bored with those characters, because the social links are actually pretty deep. There's a lot of, like, really cool information that you learn about people, and then their social link itself is linked to their personality, and it corresponds and makes sense. So there's, I would say, those characters are a deep enough well for me to want to go back constantly, 100 hours over, I would say.
Awesome. Sorry to go too far on tangent. What else have you been playing besides
Persona 3? I guess we just really went down the Persona rabbit hole, but I've also been reading a bunch of comics. I was reading a lot of Star Wars yesterday. Read Poe Dameron issue 3, which is awesome. If you want to hop on that, it's obviously not very far down the line, and I think it's only 5-issue miniseries anyways. But I felt like Poe Dameron definitely didn't get his time in Episode 7, Force Awakens, and so it's cool to see him in his own, solo comic, leading his Black Squadron X-Wing fighters, because he's a really cool character, and he's a really good pilot. Like, there's some scenes in the movie where he's really, really, like, showing his skills as a pilot, but I still don't think they highlighted it enough in the movie. So, enjoying that. And then been reading some more Witcher. Working my way through that series. I am on technically the 4th book total in that series out of, like, 7, I think. So, yeah. Mostly just been doing a lot of reading, and so I think obviously we'll talk about this at the end of the show, but I haven't played Witcher just because I decided to wait once I figured out that they were going to update the game with help for my no locking on situation in combat. So I have been itching to play that, but I was like, you know what, just wait a couple more days until that patch comes out, and it is out now, so we're good.
Awesome. So let's hop into the news here. Since it's a 2-man podcast, I gathered up as much news as I could, since we're going to only have 2 topics. So I have quite a bevy of news, so bear with me. Some really interesting stuff, though. So the first thing I want to talk about is a GameSpot article. It's by Rob Crossley. Like always, the links for all the stories are going to be in the description down below. The title of this is Mass Effect Andromeda's dev on studio tensions, female leads, and the scars from 3's ending. So let me find here the point I want to actually talk about. Give me 1 second.
It's interesting that the scars from 3's ending part is in the title there, because obviously that's something that the developer is going to talk about in this article, but just the fact that that's still on people's mind at BioWare, Montreal specifically, where they're like, yeah, a lot of people may have forgotten about that or don't care about that, especially since this is a whole new entry in the series, but I'm glad to see that it's still on their minds, because it was their game to end how they saw fit, but it would be nice if they were like, yeah, we could have done that better, and we want to be better for you in the future.
Yeah. So this interview is actually with Aaron Flynn, the Bioware general manager. So GameSpot asks, I was surprised to see that the Mass Effect Andromeda trailer didn't show any extended gameplay. Do you wish you could have showed more? So this was crazy when I read this, because this is essentially what we've talked about, right? So the general manager basically states, well, every time we do one of these things, we make a bunch of choices about how we're going to fit all of this in. So we definitely made a choice to show more of the characters. A lot of what we did here was meant to complement the previous trailer as well. This is a lot of skating around. This probably had to do something with EA telling them not to show much, so they're trying to answer this as best as they could. EA has this amazing line of game releases coming up. We come later, so we have more time to show great gameplay. But the good news...
Sorry, wait, what amazing game releases coming up? Titanfall and Battlefield? Is that it?
Yeah.
That's not an amazing line, friend.
Obviously, this is them, it's EA.
Yeah, this is PR talk, yeah.
But this next part is actually pretty interesting. So we come later, so we have more time to show great gameplay. But the good news is that everything we showed in that trailer is right from the game, which is true. So none of that is made by CG or anything like that. This is a Mass Effect game, so that kind of squad combat that you love, that third-person cover combat that you love, that moment-to-moment gameplay is all in there. So they did show all that stuff is probably in game, because if you played Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 3, somewhat in Mass Effect 1 it wasn't done as well. A lot of those scenes and stuff like that, the story elements are done in engine, obviously, during the game. I like how they say that, and that's fine if that was in the game. But then they say, the squad combat that you love, the third person cover combat that you love, and they didn't show any of that. They didn't show any of the actual combat.
Right.
They showed story elements. Whether they're in the game or not, a lot of people actually want to see the combat of the game. So the next thing here is, how big of a challenge has this project been? Flynn replies, it's been a really big challenge. When the Mass Effect trilogy story ended, we had a lot of choices to make about how we would do another game. Luckily, we had a lot of support from fans, a lot of folks who worked on the original trilogy. They've gone on to start a new IP at Bioware that they're still working on. So we had to train up a new group of leads to build this project. That was a task in and of itself. But now we have a new generation of developers who are trying to bring their vision of Mass Effect to life. So this is a big thing. We were talking about the new IP and why this game is taking longer than it should.
Wow, that's huge right there.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Is by no means still, I'm not concerned that this is going to be a bad game, but at least this gives us a sense of, this is probably why this game's taking a while. They had to train up new people. These aren't people that have worked on 2 games already and kind of have the feel for it,
It sounds like their B team at BioWare Montreal,
Yeah, well,
I mean, BioWare has a lot of teams, but as far as within just Montreal itself, it does sound like their B team.
Also, though, this might be a good thing. A lot of times you hear about these developers working on the same thing, like Guerrilla, for instance, with Killzone. Like, these developers working on something over and over again, when they have a chance to work on something new, like Guerrilla did with Horizon, it could possibly be something awesome, that new IP. And I think this is maybe for the best. A lot of those guys maybe got tired of working on Mass Effect. Maybe the whole thing with the 3's ending is they're like, well, we don't want to work on that anymore. People are gonna be that. I think this is a smart move by BioWare, just because it allows developers that basically maybe got tired of Mass Effect or stuff like that to work on something brand new, refreshing, and then it allows these other guys to build up a new skill set, like work on this franchise. You're working on Mass Effect, so I think that's cool. Also, this
that point right there though about the A team is essentially on the new IP. It's like, damn, dude, when the hell are we gonna get another Dragon Age? 2014 was Dragon Age Inquisition. I think that's an awesome game and I love it. But Dragon Age 4, 2019 at the earliest. The earliest, man, because 2017 is gonna be hopefully Andromeda, and then what are they gonna release? A game 2 years in a row.
Yeah, and I also think this might have to do with the whole Fallout 3, Fallout 4 situation of maybe they want to produce something that's so drastically different from Inquisition that it feels like a reason to make a new Dragon Age, and not just spilling out another one. And I do think we've talked about this before of them having a 3-game cycle or 3 IP cycle as opposed to 2. It definitely allows Mass Effect to breathe and have a really great game. It allows Dragon Age to breathe on whatever this new IP is, so it definitely gives them breathing room of them having to hit these expectations over and over again. So the next thing here is, so this may not surprise you, but I've heard stories of a lot of tensions at the studio. I've heard about people leaving. Casey Hudson, I'm assuming, is who he's referencing. Do you feel that's an accurate portrayal of the studio right now? And Flynn replies with, passion, yes. Tensions, yes. There are a lot of tense moments for sure. Anytime you're trying to do something big and ambitious, you're going to have tensions and second thoughts. I think trailers like this show that. For whatever doubts our developers might have in their minds about getting this done, it's going to get done and it's going to be amazing. So he's basically saying, when you try to create something as big and ambitious as this, there's going to be tensions. There's people pulling things a matter of ways, people wanting to do it their way. This is Bioware. They're owned by EA. This is one of EA's go-tos. So you definitely know EA has a hand in this of asking them, you need to deliver. We need this to be a hit, So there's a lot of things going on there. Lastly, this is something that is very interesting, and this may be more relevant before the delay happened. Not so much now, I don't think. But it's I also heard that some gameplay features are now being stripped out to meet the release date. And Flynn said, I haven't heard any of that. We've had a couple of modest changes, but nothing radical. All of the emphasis to move forward towards the freeform exploration, all that's still in there and very grounded in mechanics. So,
what release date are they trying to hit?
Exactly.
Like,
I think that question was
delayed it.
Yeah, I think that question was kind of weird, personally.
Yeah.
So
I hope they don't strip out the jetpack, because that, I mean, in my opinion, we saw even more gameplay in that tiny leak from last year than we did at E3 this year. So in that leak, they had a guy using a jetpack to traverse the environment, and it'd be really cool if that was in there for the final game.
In the part where that big old gorilla alien thing is running at your protagonist in the one that we saw this year, he did have a jetpack on his back.
He did?
Yeah, he did have a jetpack.
Okay.
So
okay.
I don't know if that'll be in the final version, but he did have a jetpack. I clearly remember that, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure. This is so the next question is, this is clearly a huge, ambitious game. This is the last one we're going to talk about before we move on to the next story. Attempting many new things at the same time. How confident are you that you'll be able to hit that early 2017 deadline? Flynn replies, I'm pretty confident. We're lucky to have an amazing publisher in EA, yada, 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 who want us to make the best Mass Effect game we can possibly do. There's always questions and getting advice. Now that we're using Frostbite, there's a lot of developers such as Dice and Visceral who have a lot of experience with the engine. So as a community of developers, I think EA has never been stronger. So I'm assuming by that he's basically saying we're getting help to finish this. That's what it sounds like he's saying.
That response sounds a lot like what Neil Druckmann told Greg Miller at PSX last year, saying that they were going to hit their March 18th, 2016 release date. Of course, they delayed, I think, 2 more times after that. So, yeah, that's pretty confident means, nothing at all to me.
Yeah, you never know. He said, I recognize that there's a lot of ambition with this game and people are nervous about it for sure. The toughest thing for us to hear is that fans are nervous, which is rather sobering. So we're eager to calm those concerns. A lot of fans hold the studio to a really high standard, and the game will mark the final say on that. So I actually really like what he said at the end of that. He didn't say the fans hold us to a really high standard, which the game will meet. He's saying the fans hold us to a really high standard, and the game will mark the final say on that. So he's basically saying when gamers get this, they'll determine if we lived up to their standards or not, which I thought was
right.
A pretty real thing to say. And he could easily said they hold us to high standards, so why wouldn't they expect this to be a great game? But he said the game will mark the final say on that. So that was a pretty interesting way to say that. The rest of it's just talking about, them talking about the new character. Its name is Ryder, the new female that they showed, and that if that's the default character. Actually, I want to talk about that really quick. So he asked, I was wondering if we're about to need the phrase menshep, and he said, yeah, it's actually funny because we have both main characters ready to view, and we're talking about this, and we thought actually with the first trilogy we had a male as a default. There's a tricky balancing act here. But there was something else. I don't exactly remember where it's at, but he was basically talking about, like, there might be 2 main characters, not necessarily just one. His wording was really weird. It wasn't, you pick a female or a male character. It's like, we have 2 main characters.
Kind of like Dishonored 2.
Yeah, it's really interesting, his wordage there, but it's a pretty cool interview. If you want to read the rest of it, there's tons more. It's on GameSpot. Definitely check it out. The link will be in the description as always. Really interesting story. A real quick here that we want to go over, also including EA. This comes by way of Andy Chalk over at PC Gamer. Titanfall 2's DLC maps will be free. So all of the maps are going to be free. Vince Zampella, the co-founder of Respawn, basically said they don't want to split the community between maps because he thinks that really hurts multiplayer gaming, especially for a game that's so heavily involved in multiplayer like Titanfall. And he says that we need to make money. We're a business, so the way we're probably going to do paid DLC is through cosmetic items and boosts, i.e. the card system. So I think this is smart. Excuse me. It's going to be hard to sell a quote unquote season pass. alongside Battlefield 1 releasing the same week, so you figure those DLCs would hit around the same time. I think this is super smart. I think this is this will definitely be a verdict in a lot of people who are on the fence of buying Titanfall 2 or Battlefield 1. I don't think this will win over people who already made their mind up to get Battlefield 1, but people are on the fence. They're like, well, I'm getting free DLC with Titanfall 2, which means that there's a lot more replayability there that I don't have to pay for. I'm getting more on my $60 at launch. So I really think that's cool. I think it's a smart move. I think it's a really smart move, especially with a lot of people felt jaded with that Battlefront DLC. So, I think.
Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead. I have nothing important.
I just feel like Titanfall really does need a few. They need to get the audience back on their side, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
And they need people to kind of flock to them, because Titanfall at this point is not a major franchise in video games, I would say.
No.
And so they need that goodwill. They need kind of like what CD Projekt Red had last year with The Witcher, where we're going to give you 16 pieces of DLC for free, and then if you want the expansion passes, you can pay for those. And I think that like the amount of goodwill that CD Projekt Red has, even right now, over a year later, is very, very high. And I think that we should see this more often. I think the more you see studios giving gamers substantial, maybe pieces of DLC, maybe it's just patching, like the way that CD Projekt Red has patched The Witcher is honestly amazing. For Blood and Wine, they did a complete overhaul of the entire UI, so I was like, damn, dude, like, you guys know what's up when it comes to taking care of your gamers, your customers. And I think that there would be a lot of studios that could benefit from treating their audience that way, and hopefully it'll work out for Respawn.
Yeah, and the biggest issue with like Call of Duty or Battlefield is like when you go into those multiplayer games and your friend maybe has the expendable income or the interest to buy the new map pack, and you don't, you're forced to play these baseline playlists where there's either not enough people or just the spirit of competition isn't there, and it ruins your friend's experience and your experience, you know? And
yeah,
the biggest thing
is,
if
you're a COD guy, like, you got to get those DLC maps, essentially.
Yeah, and I think it's the worst thing to separate your community with maps. Like, I think maps are a baseline thing that should be free. Like, you're basically adding longevity to your game, you know? So I obviously know why you would charge it, obviously, but I think this is a really smart move for Titanfall. They're not Call of Duty, they're not Battlefield. This is a very smart way to win over gamers. I think it's a very smart move. The release date, not so much. So the next story we want to talk about, first part, I'm going to talk about the Square Enix sale specifically, and then Jordan can go over the flash sale that's currently happening as of recording this. But so there's a huge Square Enix sale on the PlayStation Store. A lot of really good deals. I'm going to name a lot of these games real quick, and all of them are $5. The ones that I mentioned. So you have Chrono Trigger, you have Final Fantasy Final Fantasy 8, Final Fantasy 6, Final Fantasy Tactics, Chrono Cross, Front Mission 3, Final Fantasy 5. Basically, if you want any Final Fantasy game, minus like 7, I don't think 7 is the only one that's not on here, and Chrono Trigger or Chrono Cross, they're all like $5. This is an insane sale. If I had a PlayStation, I'd buy Chrono Trigger. It's a game that I need to get to, I need to play, but I don't have one. So, unfortunately, I can't do that. But I think this is a cool sale. This is a smart thing for Square Enix of like, here's all of the Final Fantasy stuff, you know.
It's crazy, dude. They actually do this almost exact same sale like pretty much every few months.
Oh, I was not.
Because
I didn't know that.
The things that you're naming off, I bought a few months ago for these same prices.
That's awesome. Really smart.
And a lot of things, you know, I know actually for a fact that it's this way on Xbox, but definitely this way on PlayStation. If you just kind of watch stuff that goes on sale, and maybe it's like, yeah, I definitely don't want to buy that game for $30, but you know, for sale on $12, like, that's not too bad. I'll pick that up. If you kind of watch those games, there's a lot of games that kind of get recycled through the store in these sales, and like, every few months. For example, I just picked up Game of the Year edition of Shadow of Mordor. I'd already finished that game on PC, but I hadn't played the DLC, and I was like, well, I'm not gonna, you know, pay more than $20 for this game that I've already beat just to get the DLC to play. And so I just kind of waited my time out, and it took maybe 8 or 10 months, but I wasn't really wanting to play the game that much since I beat it, and yeah, popped right back up, and it was under $20. So I was like, there you go.
Yeah. Did you want to mention the flash sale at all? Anything going with that? Anything,
Sure.
any good deals?
Yeah, I'll just go through some highlights. Most of the highlights I would say are Telltale games. So we've got Tales from the Borderlands, we've got Walking Dead Michonne, Walking Dead Season 2, Game of Thrones. There's plenty of PS3 stuff. That's another thing. Like, if you do have a PS3, just kind of sitting around, but you still like playing it every now and then, these flash sales and Square Enix sales or whatever are great, just because they will just make these PS3 games dog cheap.
Yeah.
And then, of course, screw me, because I bought Child of Light in a PlayStation sale last week. And then this week, of course, we have Child of Light Ultimate Edition for just about $1 more than I bought it last week.
Oh,
so
good.
if you're looking for Child of Light with all the DLC, you got that. Wolf Among Us is on here. Steins Gate, which that is a Japanese game that is based off of Steins Gate, an anime series. Worth checking out. I've heard plenty of good things about that. And then another awesome Japanese game, Zero Escape, Virtue's Last Reward, which is I think a sequel to 999, so you'd have to play 999 on a DS. But this game, and then Zero Escape, Virtue's Last Reward is the second game, and then the third one just came out for Vita. I think it's called Zero Time Dilemma. So if I had a few bucks cash, I would probably buy that, because I need to catch up on that series. And then Mad Max is only $16 on PS4, which that is a solid game. Not anything that's going to change your entire world, but if you got an extra 16 sitting around, that's not a bad idea.
Anything else?
Yeah, that's about it. I mean, there's plenty of other stuff.
Yeah, those are the
mostly just kind of random crap.